Hello, everybody out there. If you're there, I hope you're listening. Welcome to the Coach's Playbook. I'm back from the islands and I'm super burnt. So if you see me my back is rather, it's not good, Mick. It's not good. But anyway, something else that has had a not so good past week is crypto, specifically, Bitcoin. Everyone's following. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, Mick, you got a trader shout out for us?
I do. Big shout out to John Culpepper, currently up about 2,200 trading the NASDAQ today. And those pretty good profits for, a narrowish range day.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
awesome.
It's been a little light today, so that 2 grand's nothing to shake a stick at.
Nope.
Okay, well, why don't we just dive right into it? Mick, you wanted to kick us off today. We thought we'd just go around and give kind of our thoughts on, cryptos becoming increasingly a futures thing as well with the Bitcoin futures and now the micro Bitcoin futures from the CME. I know they're interested in getting into Ethereum, but Mick, you've been looking at them a little bit. So what's the deal?
I have. I'll just come right out there and say I am not someone who's participated in the crypto trading or investing whatsoever. In hindsight, you could say, I wish I wasn't a naysayer of Bitcoin when I was talking about it years ago with my friends at $500. Personally, haven't participated. However, I do want to say I totally understand why people are attracted to this. Being able to put up a small amount of money, buy something, or invest in something that, is trading pennies or, low dollar values with the potential of, seeing 100% increases in a day, many multiples.
100. Yeah, I was gonna say those are rookie numbers, Mick.
Well, yeah,
Crypto.
many multiples, so I understand why there's that appeal out there for that. You could take $20, throw it in something, and maybe turn that into $1,000, not whatever. You know what I mean? Put a little in, get a huge reward. I'm not looking to see where everything's trading. I don't even know all the cryptos that are out there. So that's the camp I'm coming from. However, I've been a naysayer about cryptos for a while. With Bitcoin getting launched, Bitcoin going up in price, getting launched at the CME, now micro Bitcoin, institutions kind of adopting cryptocurrencies, it's changing the landscape of it. We're not where we were 10 years ago. There's a little less uncertainty around these things. There's still a ton of uncertainty. I would have to just say that, the main reason why I haven't gotten involved in cryptos is it's something I don't understand, something I can't really follow fundamentally. Technicals, do you trade them with technicals? I don't know. I don't really think so. I think, patterns may or may not be there. And, the price fluctuations in these things is aggressive buying and aggressive selling.
The spread's still pretty wide too, right?
Extremely wide. Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things we're looking at with the micro Bitcoin. I don't want to take anybody else's talking points, but we're monitoring that. We know there's interest there in our traders. And anytime we launch a new permitted product, we want to make sure that it's built a solid foundation. There's high volume, high liquidity, nice market depth, the size on the bids and offers, and then not a wide spread in between the bid and offer. And what we're seeing right now with the micro Bitcoin is a huge wide spread, and it's really just not right now, not an environment that we're ready to let people take risk in.
Yeah, it's only been around for a couple of weeks, right? The micro Bitcoin. So
Yeah,
we'll give it a little bit of chance.
Definitely. I don't even think we've had 4 weeks since it launched. Maybe this is the 4th trading week of it. But back to just crypto in general, I focus more on a risk side. I'd rather be able to calculate my risks and not take huge risk. Yes, when you take huge risk, there's a chance for a huge reward. It's just not stuff that I have chosen to participate in because of the risk. That being said, happy to turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, why don't we let Dan join the action? Because so I guess full disclosure, none of it. I don't own any crypto. Dan, you own some like Dogecoin, I think you
Hey,
said.
I've been in Ethereum for quite a few years.
Okay.
So I'll give a little brief history. I may have said this before on here, but I will just kind of wanted to look at the prices to give a perspective. April 24th, 2011, I left for the Marine Corps. Prior to that, I was down on the trading floor, and I said to a bunch of guys, I said, you know, I'm gonna take $1,000. I want to put it in something. There's this guy, his name's Artie, standing in the 30-year bond option pit. And he looked at me and he goes, Dan, if you're going to buy anything, buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. Just do it. So I spent like 2 months researching Bitcoin, looking into it. And I was very intrigued. And I figured, you know what? It's something that I'm going to sit on for 5 years, 6 years. That was the mentality. And so about
used it to buy a pizza or something.
January, it was about January, February-ish. Bitcoin was right around $1 a coin, and I could not figure out how to buy it. And I was kind of embarrassed. So I never asked Artie how to buy Bitcoin. So I never bought Bitcoin. I was like, well, maybe I'll lose out on a couple $100. Took that money and some other money, and I went and bought a new snowmobile. Well, that snowmobile is long gone and worth absolutely nothing right now. And I could have bought 1,000 Bitcoin at $1 a pop.
There you go. $37 million now, even after the drop.
I have a anger around cryptocurrency. Now, with that being said, love the concept. I love this idea of blockchain. I think it's such an interesting way of the future. You know, if it's a way that we use instead of credit cards and cash, you know, you use the idea of blockchain. So I think the technology and the science behind it really is what's awesome. As it relates to getting into it, you know, Jack and I kind of talked about this on the podcast. It's coming out on Thursday, but really the way I look at it is it's awesome. I'm seeing a lot of people in social media, people that are not traders, that are not investors, guys that really I would not turn to for any sort of advice when it comes to trading or investing. And all they talk about is to the moon, buy, buy, buy. And I don't think that's probably the best mentality to take with it. I would more look at this and say, look at it as a standard commodity, right? If you're trading soybeans, you're not going to collect soybeans, buy them, stick them in your garage and hold it until the price of soybeans goes to the moon. You're just not going to do that. I think if you take that approach when it comes to this idea of cryptocurrency, if you're using just sort of a crypto exchange and you're trying to get in and out a little bit, make a little bit of money, you can buy small little fractions of it. I think that's such a cool opportunity, a great way to kind of venture into this idea of what trading is. And I would have to kind of add on to what Mick's saying. I don't think we're at a point where you can use technicals and the history of the markets. It's not quite there yet, but we're going to get there. I'm optimistic about that. Is Bitcoin the way of future? I don't believe so. You've got China already kind of banning it and saying, nope, nope, nope. But I think the fact that the CME has introduced a futures product for it and has created accessibility to it now with the micros, it's going to bring in some more intrigue and create some opportunity to simply just trade it. And then you can kind of go from there.
All right. Before I do my macro naysaying, Hogue, what is your crystal ball saying?
Well, I've never had very much of a good crystal ball. I mean, I'm old enough to have been able to buy Microsoft and Apple and Google and all of those, you know, those huge companies. You know, I remember when Microsoft came out, I remember thinking, you know, these computers are really just going to end up being a fad. So
that is
here we
energy.
are.
Yeah.
Right. So without the ability to be that much of a soothsayer, I think part of the problem when I first heard about Bitcoin was at the very beginning of Top Step. I was talking to a user who was mining for Bitcoin, and I'd never heard of it before. And you know, this kid said he was mining for it. He ended up owning a Bitcoin. It went up to like $50,000. He thought this was the best thing in the world, and it you know quickly came back off of that. Now that was my first introduction to it. He tried to tell me about blockchain, about how all this works, and you know, being I guess from an older generation, it really didn't make sense to me. So I think part of the issue of people being slow to get in to buy into this technology is they don't understand how the blockchain works. Now that I know how the blockchain works, there's no way I'm going to be buying any Bitcoin up at these levels, and I'll tell you why. The anonymity is something that governments don't like. You can move a lot of money around and they don't get to know about it. China's already said there's no trading in Bitcoin. India has made Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies illegal, and I think that eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have a crypto dollar or a crypto yuan, or I think the major currencies of the world are going to go to crypto so that the government can keep track of all of these transactions,
Actions.
if you will. It doesn't mean that the other cryptos will be gone unless they're completely made illegal, which who knows? I mean, you want to screw something up, let the government take it over. So, I'm a fan now that I understand it. And again, once again, I'm late to the party.
Yeah. So that's a good point, Hogue. And I think what I said in the podcast, and I'll reiterate a little bit here, is that if you're a true believer in something, at least familiarize yourself with the most competent arguments against what you're doing. So for starts, yeah, the government will be a huge issue. Second, I mean, like you say, you don't know how it works. What percent of the population knows how a bank transaction works? Very minimal, like under one. You know what I mean? It could actually tell you the mechanism of that. I can't. And what I mean is it's a lot of the reasons for Bitcoin. Okay, so I'll start with my first biggest thesis. I believe in the idea of like crypto and blockchain going forward, but I think that there's some confusion in the market. I used the example of AOL during the bubble, the .com bubble, where you had this sexy new technology that everyone knows is going to be big and somewhat ubiquitous in the future. Then it was the internet. Now it's the blockchain / cryptocurrencies or whatever. So everyone just assumes that, well, I mean, if the internet's the future, then AOL is going to be, Standard Oil or something. But that's not the way things work now, is that AOL was at its top. And at the same time, companies like Amazon and Google had just started. They were not super on the radar, nor should they been. Amazon was an online bookstore. Google was a shitty looking search engine, but they figured out the best way to eventually monetize and capitalize on the usage of the internet. There isn't that separation yet, I feel like, with Bitcoin, where people think that, well, if crypto's the future, Bitcoin's going to go to 1 million. Absolutely not. I would be afraid of a Facebook, the equivalent of a Facebook or Google or something like that. And now, I mean, I don't know how many crypto nuts there are out there. I said, go look up sort of the difference between the proof of work currencies and the proof of stake and some other ways. There's some possible flaws in Bitcoin as a long-term solution and the way the mining works and things like that. I won't go into them now. There's people that know it a lot better than I. So I guess all this roundabout stuff is to say that I think it could go a lot higher. Maybe it will win. I just think that it's not, even if you have conviction in this being the future, there are numerous reasons why you shouldn't just be like completely gung-ho into Bitcoin and that's it. At least diversify to something, anything. So
yeah,
like AOL, somebody's going to find a better way to do it.
Well, exactly, because you have a first mover advantage, which Bitcoin's enjoying right now. The other example is, think MySpace or something. MySpace had a millions and millions of user base and got their lunch eaten by Facebook, which started just as like a college thing, but built a better user experience. And remember, we don't really know who or what created Bitcoin. My understanding is a bit inflexible in some ways, right? So there could be better coins that come out. I don't know, so I'm not betting on any of them, to be honest. But
that's really the thing. That's what a lot of people are saying these days, is like Bitcoin was the front runner. It built the momentum to create the other crypto or the other cryptocurrencies to come into the marketplace, or the other coins, whatever you want to call them. I think Bitcoin. I think the one thing I would say, Jack, though, the difference here is Bitcoin is the one that is the benchmark. It is, in my opinion, I think people are looking at it like that Facebook or the Google because it is so heavily accessed. It's the most accessible of the Bitcoin. Finding ways to buy the Dogecoin has been proven difficult. Everyone wants to talk about it, but you can't hop on the largest exchange in the world of crypto wise, Coinbase, and just buy Dogecoin. You can't hop on the CME exchange and buy anything other than Bitcoin at this point. So I think it's going to at least hold a little bit stronger.
Aren't those the same reasons though why crypto? So like when people talk, I think that there's a certain sort of hardcore libertarian ideology that clouds sometimes the mind of super crypto people, in that a lot of the so what you just talked about there, exchanges and other things like that, all you're doing is adding a middleman, like you're replacing a bank or whatever.
Right.
And the idea is that you're giving, freedom or stuff like that. But the truth is, it's not easy to use unless you have an exchange, in which case, once again, you're going through a middleman. And even more so, like there's stuff, cryptocurrency is great for vendors, but there's a lot of like, for the average person, right, who doesn't care as much about their absolute ability to transact privately with things, like I'd rather buy things with a credit card that's going to give me recourse in the act that like the vendor doesn't fulfill what they said they do. All it's doing is shifting, like Bitcoin just shifts issues with payment from vendors to consumers. Really,
that is one of the most difficult things about it, right? You can't go just return. You can't deny a transaction.
Unless you go through a middleman, then you're just back at having like banks again. Right.
Exactly. Granted, you can go buy a Tesla right now with Bitcoin. That's
you
that's a big step. That's a big step.
You can't. They just that's why.
Wait,
that's what started the crash. Is they're not accepting.
Just in China, they're not, but you can still buy in the United States, I thought, with Bitcoin.
I don't think so, because Elon put out that thing on unless something has changed in the last few days. That was Elon's tweet about like the environmental cost. But really what that gets at is solving the proof of work for the Bitcoin, involving a lot of energy. But I don't think at the moment that, unless something's changed very recently, that you can buy a Tesla with Bitcoin.
It's funny, there's talk about the amount of energy used to generate a Bitcoin. There's quite a bit of energy used to generate a battery-powered vehicle too.
There is. Yeah. The issue, Mick, is if you look long-term, like it's not, I think right now, all the Bitcoin mined in the world is like equal to the energy of, I don't know, like Portugal or something. So it's not a huge problem at the moment. But the idea is that eventually, just to make the transactions, remember, Bitcoin only has a market cap right now of only, by the way, like what, like $1 trillion or something like that. And people aren't making transactions with it. Imagine if it were adopted. Those transactions have to be processed through an incredible amount of energy. Like it would be truly shocking.
All right. I want to propose a question to you guys too, on the topic of Bitcoin. 18.5 million coins have been mined up to this point. There's less than 3 left to be mined. What happens when we hit the cap? Does the price skyrocket, or do we start?
You never will, right? Because it's logarithmic in the way that it's mined. So there'll always be more to mine. So it's going to get slower and slower. I don't know.
I mean, there's got to be a point where we're going to be like, okay, we're out.
Essentially. And that's where this gets into waters that are like, I think a little bit outside our depth as far as crypto. I think that's when you see a lot of problems, really. I mean, like,
it's like the dollar being attached to gold. Once the gold standard was over, we printed a hell of a lot more dollars, but apparently you can't print a whole bunch more Bitcoin.
No, but you can also, there's questions as to how robust this is. See, this is the end that I want to tread carefully on, because someone will be like, Jack, you're an idiot. And you know what, I am, but you know what, I'm going to do my best to explain this.
You're our idiot, Jack.
Yeah. The way the blockchain works is if there could be major problems if there's not enough people actively trying to mine it, right? Like if you don't have that computing power or solving, like basically they're doing work to solve for the transactions.
Right.
But if there's no carrot, it becomes unclear what'll happen to the system, or if that makes the blockchain vulnerable. That's where the proof of stake coins come from. I didn't want to go down this rabbit hole because listen, go on YouTube. I haven't looked into any of this stuff. If you're watching this, go on YouTube and like have someone smarter than me explain it. But look up like the possible issues with proof of work and proof of stake.
Kind of to backtrack from this rabbit hole we started to go down, you know, when it comes to cryptos, remember to separate, you know, investing versus speculation and trading. You know, it can be a form of entertainment with rewards, but also great risks. You know, from an investment standpoint, I don't think it's too bad of an idea. And Jack, you mentioned diversification earlier. I don't think it's too bad of an idea to have a small percentage of, you know, your net worth with a little crypto exposure. Where to do that, I don't know. Is Bitcoin the best place? I don't know. I don't have those answers. But it's something I've started to consider a little bit more myself for my own, you know, portfolio.
Yeah. Well, we're all going to have laser eyes by the end of this, right? Or whatever.
One thing's for sure. If you guys find out that I bought some Bitcoin, sell it.
That's what I had a couple of friends who are not in the trading or finance industry who like literally like clockwork, like 2 weeks ago were like, I'm putting some money in Bitcoin. And then
that's how it happened last time too. When we hit the 20,000 a couple of years ago, everyone just started jumping in and eventually people recognized it. And then the CME contract opened up and
they hammer it.
Who do we think's making the money on these, Jay? Because it's such an odd, you know, most commodities, well, maybe gold's the only one where you have like people that are like absolutely true believers, but most people are kind of agnostic. Like I would never like be like, I'm holding these friggin' soybeans until, you know what I mean? Like just believing in it so much. So like I'd be interested as the type of person who's making large amounts of money trading the swings on this.
That'd be a good question. This is personal opinion and pure assumption, no fact or data behind it, but I just feel like a large majority of the people that are in the Bitcoin seem to be the to the moon people, where they're not going to trade it through the swings. They're just going to keep holding. That seems to be what I see the most, is everyone just wants to hold on to it. I'm seeing a lot of analysts right now still standing by this idea that Bitcoin's going to hit $100,000 by the end of the year. And I think, you know, if you believe something, you find validation find reason to validate your assumption and belief. So I think that's what a lot of people are saying right now too. We expect this to get to 100. I'm going to believe that one guy that says it, and I'm going to keep sitting in it, and good for them.
Yeah. So maybe we'll end a little like buy or sell $100,000 Bitcoin this year
to get to 100.
Yeah, it just crosses it. Like one of them trades above $100,000.
Sure, I'll buy it.
I'll sell it.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't want to say anything because I'll make it happen.
Well, just tell me so then I can make my trade.
Sold.
All right. Well, honestly, we could talk about this for days. And I guess sort of the point of this is just to say that it's on our horizon as far as trading and stuff. It's just becoming more of a tradable asset. But I just wanted to encourage everyone out there to make sure, just like anything else, do your due diligence and don't like, you know, it's like you have rear view mirrors and sensors in cars and stuff. You're probably not going to get in an accident or something like that, but you need to have that security, right? Don't blindly go somewhere and not think about what the possible risks are.
Do not risk thy whole wad, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah. That's just good in general.
Yeah.
Dan, I forgot to ask before, but did you bring a quote today or?
I got a quote.
Yeah.
All right. It is a tweet from the crypto god, Elon Musk. Dogecoin might be my favorite cryptocurrency. It's pretty cool.
Elon Musk is such a weirdo.
I love
He
him.
has spoken.
Oh man, how many people at the SEC have to spend their day just dissecting his tweets.
Right.
It's a wild world we live in, everyone.
Boy,
But
it sure is.
yeah, it sure is. But hopefully you're making the most of it out there. And hope you come back to join us next week on the Coach's Playbook, where we'll talk about what's something else hot button like cryptos. Probably nothing out there.
I'm at a loss.
That seems to be the hot button of the day.
Perfect. Well, we'll find something else then. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, and